everyone, welcome to ZETA IAS. Today we are going to discuss the part 2 of Harappan civilization. In part 1, we discussed how Harappan civilization emerged, how the agricultural techniques were used, what were the grains that were found, the animals that were found in Harappan civilization, how was the Mohenjo-daro a center of urban planning, the Great Bath, the bathroom building, and what were the social and economic differences in society and how was the Harappan society. Today we are going to discuss about the crafts that were found, the art and architecture that were found in Harappan civilization, and let's continue. As we all know, Harappan civilization was distinctively known for its art and architecture, and there was a lot of craft production in Harappan civilization. And Chanu Daro was a tiny settlement which was exclusively dedicated to craft production. Chanu Daro. So, what were the crafts that were made? There was a bead making. These all activities took place in Chanu Daro. Shelf cutting, see, metal working, D, seal making, and weight making. These were all the activities for craft production. In Chanu Daro, a tiny settlement exclusively for craft production. So, what were the variety of material that was used for making these craft? Variety of materials. That was used for making beads, all the crafts. Remarkable stones. Remarkable stones were used for making craft like carnelian. It is a beautiful red color stone. A beautiful red color stone. Quartz. Crystal. Jasper and Lastly, statite. These were the remarkable stones that were used for making the craft. What else was used? Metals. The copper ore, copper, copper was used. Bronze was also used. Gold was used. These three metals were used for craft. Shells were used. Shells were also used. And foins was also used. Foins was also used. And terracotta was also used. Terracotta was also used, or burnt clay. For making craft. So what was the shape of the craft, of the jars, etc. that were produced? Some were shapes. Some were disc shape. Some were spherical. Some were cylindrical. Some were barrel shaped or segmented. Okay. So these were the shapes of the jar. These were decorated either by painting or incising, or there were designs that were etched on them. Designs that were etched on them. Etched on them. So how these were decorated? With painting or incising, or designs that were etched in them. Different technique was used for making different type of material and different type of beads. Like statite was used. It's a very soft stone which was used very commonly. Experts have also revealed that red color of carnelian was obtained by firing yellowish raw material and beads at various stages of production. Grinding, polishing and drilling. These three completed the process. And lot of drilling sites have been found at Chanudaro, Lothal and more recently at Dholavira. Drilling sites have been found at Chanudaro, Lothal and more recently at Dholavira. Show the map. Nageshwar and the Harappan site of Nageshwar and Balakot were coastal area and were for shell production. For making shell production, shell projects, shell objects like these two areas, they were specialized for making shell objects like bangles, ladles and inlay. And these bangles, ladles, inlay, these were taken to other settlements. These were taken to other settlements. Finished products such as beads, finished products were also taken such as beads, was also taken from Chanudaru to and Lothal to big cities like Mohenjo-daro. And Harappa also. So this was how the finished products were carried. Now, what was the center of production? The places where these craft production was taking place. Now, how these were identified? They were identified through lot of research such as raw materials, the places, the centers of craft production were identified by looking into raw materials such as stone nodules, coal shells, copper, tools, unfinished products, and rejects and waste material. Rejects and waste. In fact, waste is one of the best indicator of identifying the craft production in a particular area. Waste. Identifying for center of craft production. Indicator center for craft production. It is one of the best indicator for identifying center of craft production. So what were the strategies that was followed for procuring the material for making craft? What were the strategies? The factors that were considered for procuring materials. Procuring materials. Okay. As you all know, clay was locally available. So clay was not procured from any other place. Clay was locally available. It was commonly available. Wood, stone, metal. It was procured outside the alluvial plain. Outside alluvial plain. And terracotta clay toy clay model of bullock cart shows, it indicates that goods were either transported and carried to other places, or they were bought from other places to Harappa. And there were riverine routes also. Riverine routes were also there, along with Indus and its tributaries, which shows goods were bought from other places. They were procured from other places also. Materials that was bought from subcontinent. Subcontinent and beyond. So how did they do that? They established settlement such as Nageshwar and Balakot in areas where shell was available. So they established a settlement at Balakot and Nageshwar, which were coastal area, for production of shell. The shell was available here, so they established a settlement there. Shurtugai in far off Afghanistan was the best source for lapis lazuli. Shurtugai Afghanistan, it was source of lapis lazuli. Lothal was known for carnelian. Lothal was known for a beautiful red stone called carnelian, and South Rajasthan and North Gujarat metal was bought from these places, mainly copper. Copper was found here, and south of India for gold. Gold was bought from South India. Statite was also found in South Rajasthan and North Gujarat. Statite, a soft stone, was also found here. Many expeditions was also sent to places like the Khetri region of Rajasthan, where the copper was found. Expeditions were also sent for procuring materials like in Khetri region of Rajasthan, where copper was procured. Khetri region of Rajasthan, where copper was procured. These expeditions established communication with local communities. Expeditions established a communication with local communities, which can be seen in Khetri region, where pottery, non Harappan pottery was found, and there is unusual wealth of copper objects. This region, also known as the Ganeshwara Jodhpura region. Now there was contact with distant lands also. What were those places? Like Oman. Omani copper and Harappan artifacts have traces of nickel, suggesting a common origin. And Oman and Harappan artifacts, they have common nickel. They both have nickel in common, and a distinctive type of vessel, a large Harappan jar, with a thick layer of black clay has also been found at Omani sites. A large Harappan jar coated with black clay has also been found at Omani site, which shows a connection between the distant land. Oman, also known as Magan in Mesopotamian text. Lot of Harappan seals, weights, dice and beads were also found in these places. Magan in Mesopotamian text. Oman was known as Magan in Mesopotamian text. And Harappan seals, weight, dice and beads have also been found there. Mesopotamian text also mentions there was contact with region named Dilmun. It also mentions contact with region known as Dilmun, which is island of Bahrain. Island of Bahrain, Magan, Oman and Meluha. Meluha was also mentioned, and there were a lot of products that were produced in Meluha, that were bought from Meluha, like carnelian, lapis lazuli, copper, gold and varieties of wood. Like carnelian, lapis lazuli, varieties of wood, gold, that were produced in Meluha also. Meluha was also known as land of seafarers in Mesopotamian text. It was known as land of seafarers, and we can see the depiction of boats, ships on Harappan Sea. That means they were connected to the land of Meluha also. We see depiction of boats, ships on sea. That shows a connection between Harappa and Meluha. Now there were numerous seals, script and weight in Harappan civilization that were found. We'll study in detail about them. Seals that were important part of Harappan civilization. Seals. What were the purpose of seals? Seals were used for long distance communication. Seals were used for long distance communication, and they ensured that goods that were sent were not tampered. So the purpose of seals were for long distance communication, and they ensured that goods that were sent were not tampered. Seals were made by pressing on wet clay, pressed on wet clay and were attached on the good that was carried. It was tied to a bag of goods. And this ensured that the bag was untampered, and it also conveyed the identity of the sender. Seals, bag was untampered, and identity of sender. Secondly, this was the purpose of seal, the function, and how the seals were made. Lot of script has also been found in Harappan civilization. So they used an enigmatic script. They had a line of writing, which most probably meant for the title or the name of the owner. And there were animal motifs for non-reader. Animal motifs for non-readers. The characteristics of these script they were short inscriptions. They were short inscriptions, and they had maximum of 26 signs. Maximum 26 signs. And they had non-alphabetical. They were not alphabetical. That means they were not alphabetical and had 375 to 400 signs. Which are undeciphered, and they were written from right to left, as it is evident from the spacing pattern. The spacing pattern shows the script was written right to left. Harappan people used lot of objects on which these scripts were written. These objects were seals, objects which had writings on them, with writing. Objects with writing. They were seals, jars, jewelry, tablets, copper tools, signboards, sorry, bone rods. These were few objects on which the script was written. And there was possible use of perishable material also. Perishable material was also used for writing. Was also used. Now we come to weights. So very important character of Harappan civilization, weight. Weights. Precise weights were used for exchanges. Precise weights were used for exchanges. The lower of denomination of weights were binary. The lower of weights, the denomination was binary. And higher denomination followed the decimal system. And higher followed denomination of decimal system. So lower weight, the binary denomination was used for lower weights, and for higher weight denomination of decimal system was used. Binary like 1, 2, 4, like 160, 320, 40. The smaller weights were probably used for weighing jewelry and bead. Smaller weight for weighing jewelry and beads. And a metal scale pan has also been found. Metal scale pan has also been found, which was used for weighing. What were the materials that were used for weighing? Material used were shirt, cubicle, and unmarked. This completes seals, weights, script. Now let's come to other topic, subtopic of ancient authority. No specific evidence has been found for the ancient authority that was in Harappan civilization, but a large building was labeled as a palace that has been evident given by archaeologists. Palace, it's labeled by archaeologists. There was a stone statue in Mohenjo-daro named as Priest King. You must have seen in your notebooks, books, where there is a statue of an old man that's called priest king. But the evidence for planned settlements, the standardized ratio of brick size, as we had studied in part 1, and the establishment of settlements near the sources of raw materials and similarity in artifacts indicate that Harappans practiced some sort of democratic system. Okay, but we are not sure whether there was an authority or whether there was a king or not. Last, the decline. As per archaeologists, Harappan civilization declined due to many factors like the climatic change. Since the Harappan civilization was around the semi-arid land, maybe it, it was tough to live there. Deforestation, or maybe there was excessive flood near Indus, excessive floods, shifting or drying up of river, and there was overuse of landscape, which led to the disappearance of seals, the script, the distinctive beads, and pottery. Disappearance of seals, pottery. So these might be some factors which led to the decline of Harappan civilization. This was all for Harappan civilization, and I hope this helps, and happy learning.